Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. Today we're continuing our exploration of Gita for joyful living. We're looking at this framework based on ancient wisdom, mainly the Bhagavad Gita, finding practical ways, towards inner peace.
That's right.
We've already unpacked the first 5 steps, sort of laying the groundwork, how we deal with the world ourselves. And now, now we're taking a pretty big leap, I think, into mental discipline itself.
Indeed. Up to now, it's been about setting, let's say, essential principles. What we're delving into now, step 6, it's really about actively steering the mind. That's a skill the source of stress is, absolutely crucial for inner peace, for making progress here.
Actively steering.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds both powerful and, frankly, a bit daunting.
It can seem that way at first.
So we're talking about concentration meditation. Our mission today is to really get under the hood, understand its purpose, how it works, and why it's such a key piece of this whole joyful living puzzle. Ready to focus in?
Let's do it.
Okay, so before we get into the how-to, let's tackle the why. Why concentration meditation? What's the problem it's actually solving?
Well, it's fascinating how the source material talks about the mind. It uses this very vivid image, comparing it to a young calf.
Good.
It says, by nature, the mind keeps wavering. It is like a young calf who keeps jumping and running all around without any rest. So the idea is you can't just force it still, but you also can't just let it run totally wild.
Right, that would be chaos.
Yeah.
So if it's naturally restless like that, what's the strategy? How do you gain control without, breaking its spirit, so to speak?
The compromise, as the source puts it, is to tie the calf to a pole with a long rope. So initially the rope's long, right? It allows for some movement, some freedom. But then you progressively shorten that rope until the mind is, and this is the quote, forced to stand still. It's a brilliant analogy, really, for concentration meditation. Gently, but persistently, reining in that wandering mind.
Gently, but persistently. I like that. It's a gradual tightening.
Yeah.
Okay, so how does this connect back to what we talked about before, relaxation meditation? Is this just like relaxation plus, or is there specific order?
That's a really important point about the sequence. The source is very clear. Concentration meditation should always come after relaxation meditation.
Always.
Always. And you should be comfortable with the relaxation part first. It's a progression, you see. Calm the waters, then learn to steer the boat. The good news, though, is that for some people, hitting the goals of relaxation meditation might only take a few minutes.
Oh, okay. So it doesn't have to be a huge time block just for the relaxation part.
Exactly. It sets you up pretty quickly for the concentration practice.
And the total time for both, are we talking like an hour commitment every day?
No, not necessarily, especially at the start. It's designed to be quite efficient. Both together can often be done within about 20 minutes.
20 minutes, okay.
Yes.
Manageable.
Very. Though, of course, if you want to go deeper, or as you progress, you can extend it up to an hour. It really depends on your preference and, how your practice is developing. Consistency is probably more important than length initially.
Right, build the habit.
Yeah.
That's reassuringly practical.
Yeah.
Okay, so the why is clear. Gain control over the wandering mind. But how do we actually do it? How do we tie up that mental calf and start shortening the rope? You said the source breaks it down.
Yes, into 3 distinct stages. And the underlying principle for all 3 is enabling your intelligence, your ability to discern and direct to gain control over the mind. Normally, our thoughts are just, chaotic, aren't they?
All over the place.
We don't know what we'll think next. This practice aims to change that, to bring some order, some intention.
Okay, let's take stage 1. What does that first sort of gentle boundary look like?
Stage 1 involves giving your mind a specific task. And the rule is, think only about that chosen topic.
Yeah.
You actively ban other thoughts.
Ban them. Sounds strict.
Well, you try to guide the mind back gently when it strays. The task itself can start quite broad, like the source suggests, think about my family. But the key is, you then progressively narrow that focus. Just like shortening the rope, you move from a wide field to a more confined space.
Okay, can you give us more concrete examples? What kind of tasks actually work well here?
Yeah, absolutely. The source gives some great ones. An architect, for instance, could mentally build a temple, visualizing it, piece by piece, the design, the materials.
Oh, like a mental construction project.
Exactly. Or a software engineer could try to build a new product or website entirely in their head, the features, the user flow, the logic. The critical thing, whatever the task, is that your thoughts must not stray outside that defined boundary.
And the goal is?
The goal is to reach a point where you feel confident, you know what you'll be thinking about, say, 10 minutes from now. within that chosen task, of course. That's a huge step in mental command.
Wow. Yeah, just knowing your thoughts won't be completely random for 10 minutes, that would be powerful. Okay, so you've established some boundary control. What happens in stage 2? How do we tighten the focus even more?
So once you've got that initial handle on keeping thoughts within a zone, you move to stage 2. This stage involves narrowing the task further, specifically through repetition.
Repetition, okay.
Yeah, this is where you might internally recite something you've already memorized. It engages the mind in a very continuous focus loop.
And what kind of things would you recite? I mean, passages from the Gita seem obvious given the source.
Right, that's definitely one suggestion, reciting the Gita if you know it by heart. Or it could be any long poem you've memorized, maybe the lyrics to a song you know well, the Ten Commandments, or even, and this one always raises eyebrows,
Go on.
a list of names of vegetables.
Wait, names of vegetables. Seriously.
Seriously.
That seems so mundane. Why vegetables?
And that's precisely the point it illustrates so well. It highlights that the content itself isn't the most crucial part at this stage. What's crucial is the discipline the practice builds. There are strict rules. The repetition has to be purely mental, no moving your lips, no physical aids, and you absolutely must not stray outside your prefix list. If you choose vegetables, you stick only to the specific vegetable names you decided on beforehand, repeating them over and over.
So it's like mental weightlifting. The specific weight doesn't matter as much as the consistent repetition and form.
That's a great way to put it. It's about the mechanics of focused attention and sticking to a defined mental track, no matter how simple that track is.
Fascinating. Okay, so stage 1 is a defined task. Stage 2 is mental repetition within that task.
Yeah.
What about stage 3? The tightest rope you said. What does that look like?
Stage 3 is the pinnacle of this specific practice, concentrating on a single thought. Just one.
One thought.
One single thought or phrase. The source gives you examples like Hare Krishna or, interestingly, even Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola. Really? Again, with the surprising examples.
It again emphasizes the principle. The object of concentration isn't as important as the act of concentration itself at this stage. The aim is to hold that single phrase in your mind for the entire duration of your meditation, allowing nothing else to enter. You're essentially forcing the mind to stand still on that one point.
Wow. Okay. And how do you know if you've actually, well, achieved stage 3? Is there a marker?
There is. The benchmark given is being able to repeat your chosen word or phrase mentally 108 times without a single other thought intruding.
108 times without any other thoughts.
That's the stated goal for mastery of this specific step, yes.
Okay, I have to say, 108 repetitions sounds incredibly difficult. My mind wanders after maybe 3. What happens if your mind does stray? Does that mean you've just failed?
That's a very natural concern, and the source is actually quite practical about it. It explicitly says it is perfectly all right if the mind strays into unwanted thoughts.
Oh, okay, that's a relief.
It is. It means you haven't fully mastered the art yet, sure, but it absolutely doesn't mean failure. In fact, it shows you've already gained some control. Think about it. Before, maybe your mind was just wandering aimlessly. You had no idea where it would go. Now, even if it drifts sometimes, you have a focus point you're returning to. You're aware of the drift. That's progress.
So it's really about the effort, the direction, the gradual improvement, not hitting some impossible standard of perfection right away.
Precisely. Progress, not perfection. And the source adds another crucial point here. One should not attempt to eliminate all thoughts.
Right, you mentioned that earlier. It's not about emptiness.
Exactly. The mind's power isn't in being blank, it's in being directed. You want to harness that incredible mental energy and point it where you choose rather than just trying to shut it off or letting it scatter everywhere.
Okay. And you mentioned the mind's power. The Thor's talks about its very high potential to concentrate. What kind of potential are we talking about? Is it just about being better at focusing on work or something more?
Well, the source suggests it can be quite profound. It says that if the mind is sufficiently trained, it can do wonders. It uses that classic analogy of focusing sunlight through a lens. Diffuse light becomes powerful enough to start a fire when concentrated.
Right.
And similarly, it suggests that extraordinary powers, things like ESP, extrasensory perception, maybe telepathy, things like that, could potentially be developed through very advanced concentration meditation, likely under expert guidance. It hints at a latent power within intense focus.
Okay, ESP. Now, things are getting really interesting. So is that the ultimate goal here, developing psychic powers? Is that why we're doing this as part of Gita for Joyful Living?
That's the critical connection back to the overall purpose. The source is very, very clear on this point. However, our goal is not to achieve such powers.
Explicitly states that.
Explicitly. While acknowledging the potential is there, the purpose of this step within this particular framework for joyful living is to refine the mind, to make it a better instrument for higher understanding, for inner peace, for moving on to the subsequent steps. The advice is actually not to spend excessive time solely trying to perfect concentration or chasing these potential side effects.
So it's a tool, a very powerful tool, but it's a means to an end, not the end itself in this context.
Precisely. It's about building the mental muscle needed for the rest of the journey.
So let me just clarify this.
Yeah.
Even if someone tries stage 3, tries for the 108 repetitions, but finds their mind still wanders a bit, they shouldn't just get stuck there, thinking they can't move on.
Absolutely correct. The text explicitly advises that even if you don't perfectly hit that 108 benchmark without any stray thoughts, you should, and I quote, proceed to the next step after achieving reasonable success in this effort.
Reasonable success.
Yes, it's about building that foundational control, that discipline, demonstrating you can direct your mind significantly better than before, even if it's not flawless. Getting stuck striving for absolute perfection at this stage would actually hinder progress on the overall path to joyful living.
Wow. Okay, that puts it all into perspective. What a fascinating deep dive into focus. Concentration meditation, then, it's not just about being quiet, is it? It's a very active, deliberate practice of taming that wandering mind, like you said, like training that calf, gently but firmly.
It really underscores that joyful living, according to this path, isn't about somehow suppressing the mind or forcing it into silence. It's about guiding it. Guiding it with intelligence, with intention, so it becomes an ally, a tool for deeper awareness and peace, rather than just being swept along by every random thought or feeling.
Yeah, exactly. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How much more could our minds actually do? How much calmer could we be if we just intentionally directed our thoughts even for, say, those 20 minutes a day? As you think about these stages, what might you choose as that first single thought to practice holding on to? Definitely something to ponder until our next deep dive.